Welcome to the podcast, Wait, What Do You Do Again? Where we talk to everyday people doing amazing things. I'm your host, Meghan DeFord. Let's go. You're all bundled up.
You hear me?
I can hear you. You're all bundled up.
I know.
Where are you? I love that. Is that your bedroom behind you?
Yeah, my bedroom is right there.
Oh, that way. Got it.
Oh, honey.
You look great. I love it.
And this is my bookcase.
Really quick. Abracadabra, amor una na. Abracadabra.
Abracadabra.
Abracadabra. I'm obsessed. I love it. You're doing great. I love it. You just cast a spell. It's in my head all day.
Abracadabra. I do it at my desk at work. I'm like, abracadabra.
The beat under your feet, the floor's on fire.
She's so kooky.
She's so great. I love it. Gaga's back. The recession is coming full force. And
oh, Jesus Christ.
so I didn't tell you this. When I first saw her on Hot Ones, I thought it was Ariana Grande.
Oh, because the blonde.
The blonde and the blonde like eyebrows. And it
So
did a double take.
ethereal. Her and her little, she loves to switch it up.
Mhm.
But she has that look for this era, and I look great. I think it's
You look great.
And I think can you hear me okay?
I can. I'm gonna take a screenshot. You look fabulous.
The other thing is she has the goth look with the bang and the long black hair, the bust down wig. I'm like,
I always wanted to like rock that look. I wouldn't look good in it.
why?
I don't know. I just think those women who can rock that are so like
What, the
hot.
black wig?
Yeah, like the black, like sort of mullety bob thing going on.
You had a situation like that years ago.
Mm-mm.
You had a short pixie before it went straight pixie. You had a little back thing going. Did you not?
That was the Julie Andrews. That was just growing it out.
But how different was that?
It was.
It's not that much different from what you're talking about.
I love a pixie cut.
Other thing,
Yeah.
it's like because I've been doing a lot of fashion lately,
Yeah.
and all the time. Like I'm not like new to the fashion and dressing up,
Yeah.
and things like that. But one of the things that people always say to me, I can never rock that. I couldn't wear those boots, or
Yeah.
I couldn't wear that shirt, or I couldn't do that wig, Meghan. Yes, you can.
I could.
Why do we put these limits on ourselves? Going back to when we first recorded, why do we limit ourselves and our greatness?
That's true. I think it's about confidence, right?
It's all confidence.
You want me to put on my, oh my God, MomTok Halloween wig? Will MomTok survive this? You want to see it?
Maybe I'll buy you the Gaga bang black wig.
Here, I'm gonna go
because
I'm gonna go put it on. Talk amongst yourself. I'll be right back.
Talk amongst yourselves. Coffee talk. Hi.
Oh, where is it?
Hi, hello.
Oh, here it is. I'm going to yoga after this.
Oh. Oh, Lord. Here we go. That's a lot of pieces.
Can MomTok survive this? Will MomTok survive?
I just want the part to be more defined in that wig. That's what it needs. Just a little bit, it's wiggy. It's giving wiggy.
Yeah, it is a little wig. Well, it's Shein. It was like $6 on Shein.
Well, yeah.
That's pretty good for Shein, right?
Oh, for sure.
And a Halloween costume.
Oh yeah, you're like, what is that? 18 inches?
Something like that. Yeah. But have you seen that the Mormon wives on TikTok, that whole thing?
No.
Oh my God.
I'm barely on the TikTok. Like,
oh no, I don't watch it on TikTok. It's the like little series on Hulu. You know how we were talking yesterday about your guilty pleasure? One of my guilty pleasures is this like what is it called? It's not the Real Housewives of Salt Lake.
It's another show.
It's another show. Oh my God, it's so good.
Spin-off.
It's so good. Let's see.
Abra.
Ama unana, abracadabra. Let me see. Let me look. Hold on one second.
Abracadabra,
Abracadabra.
abracadabra.
Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. And they were
I
all
don't
soft
care.
swinging.
That's I just can't. I have my own challenges and tribulations. I yeah. It's
It was
sickening.
interesting. And these poor women, they're like married off at like 17, 18. They've had no life experience whatsoever. And now they're on this platform and they're like 25, 26, sometimes 30 plus, and they act like they're still 16. It's wild. Oh, and
Are they get
they can't drink coffee, but they get around it by drinking soda, and they have these like soda bars. One's coming to Florida. I want to check it out.
I can't get into it. Like there was a time in my life where I watched Housewives of New York, Housewives of New Jersey, Housewives of Atlanta, Housewives of Potomac, Housewives of Beverly Hills. This is like years
All of
ago.
them.
I not all of them. I did Orange County never interested me, but like all the other ones I sort of. But then I was just like, no, I just
Yeah.
stopped watching. In Atlanta, I forgot Atlanta. In Atlanta,
Atlanta with Nene was the best. That was an
was
era.
a lot.
Yeah. Wiggy. Talk about Wiggy. Yeah, I stopped a while ago because it was like it was too much and it's mean. It's mean. Beverly Hills is fun. Those women have money, money,
I
but
thought I watched for like water cooler conversation.
yes. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
but because I remember Housewives of New York started right after we left college, I think. Because I
I wasn't
remember,
OC the first one, and
yes,
it
Orange
used to be
County for
really
sure.
boring.
Right. And then it got, yeah. I just
Anyway,
don't, then I, I think there's a little bit of exploitation going on there. So I just don't,
100%. A hundred
yeah,
percent.
it's too much.
I have a little bit of feedback from our actor list if you want to hear it.
Okay.
People agreed with you about Leonardo DiCaprio. I was shocked.
What did I say again? Remind me.
Well, I was like, if Leonardo DiCaprio is in it, I'm in, right? Like, I think it's so good. And people were like, oh, he's overrated.
See, I don't think I hate, I'm such a Gemini where I like see, but I can argue against myself on things. Like, oh yeah. As I look back at the roles of Leonardo DiCaprio, none of them are like, oh, I'm gonna watch that again because I really liked how he portrayed whatever, right?
Hmm.
Like the Departed, I thought that was good, but I kind of remember anything specific. What's Eating Gilbert Grape? I think that was
That
interesting,
was a great,
a
yeah.
throwback one. But then like all the others, I just was. What's the one? Wolf of Wall Street,
Wolf of
right?
Wall Street,
Like, oh yes,
Shutter
Leo.
Island.
I didn't watch it.
Oh, you know what I've never watched is Gangs of New York.
Okay, that was a good, but then my brain doesn't automatically go like, oh, you have to remind me. Oh, that was a good film,
But
actually.
you know what's interesting? And I still stand by, I still like Leonardo DiCaprio, but I didn't realize how many people think he's mid, which is fine. What we just mentioned, so The Departed is with Jack Nicholson, right?
Right,
Gangs of New York, Daniel Day-Lewis.
right.
Shutter
Like these,
Island is kind of himself. What's Eating Gilbert Grape, Johnny Depp,
yeah.
who I think is a great actor. I mean, Kooky Dukes and probably should be canceled, but like I think he's a good actor.
Maybe it's the roles he chooses. I'm not into it, and to be true, like it's called a thing a thing. Like we like to see ourselves in characters,
Sure.
and not that it's always about race when
Hmm.
sometimes it is, but I'm just like I don't, Leo, I can't identify with what's going on with him.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he is a chameleon. Like I feel like when he takes on roles, he like just embodies the role. But I see that. I get it. What else are we yapping about today? I have a
Happy Black
few.
History Month, by the
Happy
way.
Black History Month.
I had two things to talk about music. So I was just before I got on here, I was scrolling on the Instas.
Hmm.
And do you remember that song, 90s? So 90s techno, right?
Mm,
Some of your favorite 90s techno songs. Can you think of any?
so many. So I
Like
but
what?
you know
What
what the
comes to
problem
mind?
is? I'm not sure if they're 90s. Hold on.
Like
What give me one of yours.
tonight is the night is the
The
night
night
of
of love.
love, love. Sweet
Together
dreams are
forever is never enough. What was the other one you were just doing?
sweet dreams are ever dancing.
Yeah.
sweet dreams. Or the other one was, remember, run away, run away,
Way, run
run
away
away,
and save your
save your
life. I was just pulling up my
life,
90s classic.
run
This is one
away,
of my faves.
run away. So that first group was La Bouche.
Oh yeah.
And that's Sweet Dreams and Tonight. And then the other group was the Real McCoy,
So
which
good.
Runaway was a good song, but
Wait, but Real
also
McCoy had another one.
Another Night,
And
Another
another dream, but be you. It's like a vision of love that
that
seems to
seems
be
to be
true.
true. And I
Another
bring
night, another vision of love.
I feel joy, I feel pain,
Pain.
and never the same.
Same.
I talk to you.
He's white, by the way. That guy's
But
white.
everyone else is black, and I
I
bring up the
know.
Black History Month because I was at this absolutely amazing gala
Oh
last
yeah, yeah,
night.
yeah.
This is an organization called the Virginia Black History Month Association, and they have a gala every year. It's my first time attending, and it's been going for 25 years. And Erica Alexander from Living Single, if you saw American Fiction, she was like the lead female in that film, but just an amazing actress. Cousin Pam in The Cosby Show for those. And she had a great conversation. She was like a fireside chat,
Hmm.
and she was being interviewed on the stage. And one of the things that she was talking about with what's going on in the world, and we have this new administration and all the anti-woke, anti-DEI, all the pretty much anti-blackness going along.
Hmm.
And it's very much like, you can't make a move without Black culture. Black culture is not only American culture, it is the culture of the world. Like,
Yep.
the influences around, like those songs that if you grew up in the 90s, if you're a millennial kid or older, those songs, they're earworm. You just mention it and it's like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
that was the thing. And it because Robin S. from that Beyonce sampled for Break My Soul,
Hmm.
that's another one. There's so many others.
So many. So many.
Everybody dance now.
Uh, uh,
Uh,
uh,
uh,
uh,
uh,
uh,
uh.
uh,
Like these are
Let me clear my throat. That's the thing is you can't participate. You cannot say you love America and you cannot participate in American culture and not celebrate Black Americans. I mean, it's insane to me. It's insane to me when
it's
we put
embedded in
out we're
everything.
anti-DEI, yet we're like, yeah, America in the Olympics. And look at our Olympic team. It's by far the most diverse in the world. Diversity is excellence. It's what makes us great. Like it is the cognitive dissonance that's going on is bonkers. And
You take away us, Black folks, people of color. You don't have Olympic medals. Like let's call a thing a thing.
no,
Track and field, America's track and field team would be not great. Like I just don't people understand how embedded, and it's great that what's this that guy said diversity is our strength. He disagrees with that, and it's like what Secretary of Defense
what's the
trying to get
argument
but
against diversity being a strength?
because it takes away because people feel like it's a zero-sum game. So if everyone's in the pot, who does that take away from?
Right. And when we were talking about this a few weeks ago, the thing that's always astounding to me is the entitlement, right? Because a lot of
Yes.
people think, and I think they don't realize what they're saying, that that spot in the college admission process was theirs. It was
Yeah.
taken away from them. That job was taken away from them.
Yeah.
That track and field spot, that gold medal was taken away from them.
Yeah.
And this whole conversation about merit is absurd.
Right.
But that's what it gets down to. That was mine. That was mine. The time that women spend pumping to nurse their kids while they're at work, that's stolen time. That's under DEI. That ramp, like why should we do ramps for people? I can walk, I have 2 feet. Like
Yeah.
it is wild to me the entitlement that goes along with it. But you cannot participate in American culture. You cannot watch the NFL. You cannot listen to music. You cannot participate in any part of American culture. You cannot go to restaurants and not celebrate diversity and
Right.
specifically Black Americans.
Like what is an American dish that everyone loves? Like
Mac
everyone,
and cheese.
right? And what else? What protein is people like falling over for? restaurants just keep creating themselves fast food chains,
Mm-hmm.
particularly to create Raising Cane's,
Yep.
Chick-fil-A. What
Yep.
are they producing? Fried chicken.
Yeah.
Fried chicken is so global now. The Koreans have fried chicken. That was
Yes.
all
Delicious.
from the Korean War when they the black GIs were there, and
Mm-hmm.
they brought that over there. Now Korean fried chicken's a whole thing, which is
So
delicious.
good.
But people think that, oh, people don't often know those stories, and I'm glad we're having more of these like shows you can watch, origins of
Yeah.
food and things like that, and people can explain, or music. Like Eric Alexander brought up a good point, and this is like, people have brought this up before, but the Elvis Presley sound was not his original sound.
No.
It was a man by the name of Roy Hamilton that Elvis aped, copied. And in the movie, people know this is, people talk about it. It's not like a secret, it's not a hush hush, it's not a controversial, it's a fact. And that's how Elvis got his sound
Yep.
and moving like the way he does. They weren't doing, people aren't doing that.
No.
All performers weren't doing that little, the
No.
country little I mean, nowadays, like, oh, he's a little shimmy. But that
That I love that a shimmy was so scandalous. But you introduced me to this term, like he was a culture vulture. I mean, and there's so many culture vultures.
right,
And it's taking it, it's
right.
accelerating it and highlighting it, but also watering it down, right?
I
And
feel like a lot of people will say, like, in that same music vein, they're like, "Oh, I love the Beatles. I love the Beatles. They're just the end all and be all." And you're like, you know, mm, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones,
yeah,
like mentored by Little Richard,
yes. Yeah. And
who,
the Beatles have always said that they were inspired by jazz and gospel and specifically Black American music. And they've always said that they've always given credit to
yeah,
that genre. And I personally think the Beatles, there's a lot you can say about the Beatles. I love them. I'm fascinated that their music endures the way that it does. It's
right,
very simple. And you can hear it, especially in the early work. You can hear
yeah,
how they were inspired by it. And that's the thing too about diversity, even outside of the United States, because there's a whole world out there. But
right.
think about those cultural exchanges. It makes us better and it pushes us
It
forward.
does, because yeah, I totally agree. It's like having someone from a different perspective allows you to think about things differently you never thought of before,
Yeah.
right? Like, why would we take a chicken, douse it in the milled grain, and put it in oil and cook it? Like,
Yeah.
why would I do that? You know what I mean? Or the story with macaroni and cheese comes from France, and Jefferson taking Sally Hemings' brother
Yeah.
over there. You guys can do your own research about Sally
Well,
Hemings. Brought it
yeah.
back to America and perfected it and made this American thing, made it American, inspired by France, and da 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 da. And I feel like we see that often because it's a different perspective that makes that pushes it forward, whether it's music, food, whether it's language. Like, like, for example, Barack Obama. It's so funny. Is it funny? I don't know if it's funny, but Josh Shapiro, what do they call him? You may have heard this during the campaign. They called him the Jewish Barack Obama, which is very interesting.
Everybody's like a Barack Obama light. Like Hakeem Jeffries is like I've heard he's like the Sheehan Barack Obama.
Like, and without that, you don't get better, right?
Right.
Great orator, great messenger. Like, with we keep improving upon
Yes.
the examples we have before, but if we don't have new voices, new people, different backgrounds, whether it is racial or socioeconomic or what have you, we don't advance.
Correct. Yeah, correct. And I mean, I've always said this, there's no Kobe without Michael, there's no LeBron without Kobe, right? I mean, and that's a whole argument in of itself, but like everybody wants to be better than the best, right? And keep pushing and trying new things and going back to macaroni and cheese because I think this is like really horrific when you stop and think about it. Thomas Jefferson's chef, who was enslaved, when he took him to France, he was a free man. And Thomas Jefferson treated him as such. And when they came back to Virginia, he was enslaved and he was treated as such. And that to me is like so, it's sad, it's horrific, it's mind-boggling. And this is maybe tangential, but it's wild how we allow these things to happen, right? Like, why was he allowed to be free, quote unquote, free in France, but as soon as he stepped foot back in the United States, he wasn't because of a law that someone else created. It's just the more things change, the more they stay the same, you know? It's sad.
Yeah, it's like I think about that, and I think it's kind of preserving this hierarchy, this American caste system. That's what it is. I
Yeah.
mean, when you think about it, the same could be said. So that was what, 1800 something or late
Mm.
1700s with
Yeah.
Jefferson. But then you fast forward to post World War II, when our Black veterans come back from serving the war, doing amazing work, fighting for freedom
Right.
for our country and others. They come back in their uniform. They're dragged in the middle of the streets and hung if they're
Yep.
wearing the U.S. uniform, right?
Yep.
What's that? I thought we love the veterans, but and so it's maintaining a hierarchy.
Yep.
Don't
If
get
I
if I let this go by, this is my thinking, then we're having a shift in how things go. And so that's what we're dealing with right now. She was talking about it last night. Like we were talking about Erica. Oh, so good. We're currently in a third reconstruction of the country. That
talk more about
she
that.
she explained that. So the first reconstruction was during after the Civil War. So this is like 1870s, 1880s, when rights were being expanded to people, to Black people. People in slavery is no more, and the country is trying to deal with this new world order, so to speak. Like, okay, what does that look like? And because of indignant, just call it a thing, white folks in the South, Reconstruction didn't really reach its full goal of
Right.
integrating the society, right? And that's where Jim Crow came in, the Jim Crow. And so we had legal apartheid in the United States. And so then from there, we get the second Reconstruction in the 1960s with the Civil Rights Movement, with Dr. King and others, right? And that's when we got the Voting Rights Act, Civil Rights Act, Housing Act, all those advances, right?
Yep.
And so now we are in a third reconstruction of some of it's like rolling back a lot of these things, which is insane to think about. We had affirmative action no more, diversity, equity, and inclusion no more. Some of these acts from the 1960s are like, well, we don't need that anymore. The Equal Rights Act, the ERA has been gone, and things like that, right? And so now we're like, we're at this almost like a crossroads in our country, or multiple roads in our country to go down. We're at a traffic circle, like DuPont Circle. We're like, which road are we going to take?
Dave Thomas circle.
Yeah, we're like,
Chaotic.
what are we gonna do? And so that's where we are, and shall see. It's not been written, it's not been ordained, even though the administration wants to go in a different direction. But I really believe it's the genie's out of the bottle. What are you gonna do?
It's out.
Gonna ship all the people of color out this country? We're gonna
Well,
like try to bring back Jim Crow or some apartheid or something like.
yeah, that's the goal. I mean,
I
but
know, but
the
like
thing
I don't think
is,
they'll be successful, but they
I
will
don't know.
cause a lot
And
of pain.
what concerns me, it sounds so outrageous and so like that can't happen. But look at Roe v. Wade.
Yeah.
Look at Roe v. Wade. And the silence, the absolute silence around the fall of Roe v. Wade. And people weren't marching. Where's all the girl dads? Where's all the people wearing pink jerseys for breast cancer month? Where it was allowed. And to what I was saying earlier, actually, about in this country being enslaved and then going to France and being free, I have very little to no bodily autonomy in the state of Florida. And if I go outside of this country, I do. There's a lot to say. And like you said, there's many crossroads that we're at. And what I was writing down is like, it's interesting that in Reconstruction and Jim Crow and legalized segregation and apartheid, I've been hearing a lot of commentary, and I think it's true that history rhymes and echoes, and it's important that there's different context, but I'm hearing a lot about Nazi Germany, which I think you absolutely can create parallels to. But the Nazis actually, the German Nazis actually came to the United States and
Talk
looked at the
about it.
playbook that was created here, and they were like,
Talk
"This is
about it.
too intense." And the in the 1930s in Madison Square Garden, there was a massive Nazi rally. So when people are surprised that the Sig Heil is coming back, it has always been there. But when you think about the note that I made is after the Civil Rights Act and the Civil Rights Movement and the Second Reconstruction, when was that? Right after World War II. The Americans were the hero. We had beaten the Nazis. But those principles in the United States didn't go anywhere. They were just hushed a little bit, right?
Right.
And
It was not a polite society. You couldn't say these things.
and it would make us not the heroes.
And
And
that's what, okay, go ahead.
oh no, I was just going to say, and it's personal and it's as a country, we write our own narratives. And there's been a slow chipping away in our country of norms and, like you said, a politeness. But there's been an undercurrent in this country, and especially in certain areas of this country, where those ideals still prevail. And it's an interesting time. And it was actually after Obama was elected the first time that there was a spike in racism that I had never seen before in my lifetime. And a lot of my friends were saying, "Good, I'm glad. Now I know. I'd rather your racism be out and loud because when we sit at the dinner table, you're not saying it to my face, but now you're
Yeah,
saying it out." And
I
that was
agree.
very eye-opening to me. And I almost feel like now is so important because it's out there. It's out there's freaking sig hails. It's not my heart goes out to you. People are doing it left and right. And when you're looking at Project 2025, yes, there's a Christian evangelicalism undercurrent through it, but when you're looking at the fact that, if my passport and last name doesn't match my birth certificate and I can't produce a passport,
Uh,
I don't get to vote. I don't have bodily autonomy. I don't get to vote. Guess what? Maybe my bank account is going to go away. Maybe my right to having a credit card is going to go away. But to your point, the genie's out of the bottle. So what are we as citizens going to do about it?
Organize. We have to organize. I was really pleased to see because I learned about that, the whole ID and
Mm,
passport and being able to vote. And
yeah.
yeah, I was watching the one of the what was I watching? I was watching the news, and there was a one of the congressmen in McCormick in
Hmm.
Georgia was holding a town hall, and this was brought up. But it's interesting because there's always been this sort of like movement of, I think, a few, not a few, but just like not overwhelming movement of like putting women back in these tradwife situations, you know.
Which MomTok, right? I mean,
Yeah, is that what that is?
yeah, well they're
Oh,
all Mormon, and not that every Mormon wife is a traditional wife, but the show is fascinating. And I don't want to get off topic because you're in the middle of your thought, but it does address some of this trad wife idealism.
I mean, we
It's the
was,
Save Act, by the way.
it's very
I
interesting
misspoke.
because it's like we've made so much progress in kind of a short amount of time. You think about like how long
Tremendously.
it takes, you know,
Tremendously.
since 1960s, like it's only been 53 years. We've made a lot of progress, a ton more to go. But 60 years ago, I couldn't vote. Like, you know
No,
what I mean? And
no.
so I think one of the things that there's this movement to go back to this time of like, when women were at home cooking and this, and I call them traditional because traditional for who?
Even that nomenclature is a lie because most women throughout history, since the dawn of whenever we, became bipedal, have worked. And
Yeah,
this idea of a traditional wife, this ideal goes back to, again, post World War II. Women were part of the backbone of the economic backbone rather of this country during World War II. And they found freedom and they wanted to maintain it. But this idea of you can be home, you can raise your kids, you have, like two kids, two cars, a dog, white picket fence, whatever. And that's all marketing. That's all marketing. Women at that time were still working. It was just the upper middle class and upper class that could embrace this ideal. And for who? For white people, predominantly. And it's not traditional. Women not working is not traditional.
Women
But think
always
about the
work.
marketing around it
Like you
and the
say,
narrative.
work. Like they're raising kids. One of the hardest jobs that
For
you have
sure. Oh, and
that
I'm
does.
Thank you. Yes, working outside of the home.
Oh, I
Most
see.
women throughout history have worked outside of the home. They have raised children and families and participated in the
Right.
economy outside of the home. And it's a false narrative. And I think a lot of it goes back to the fact, I mean, hey, I don't aspire to labor. Like I don't aspire to work. I don't know who sits there and is
Yeah.
like, yes, I want to be an accountant, at age 7. But like maybe there are some. And I think there's pride and dignity in work. I'm not saying that. But I think that to me, the response of women dreaming about this trad wife thing is that we now have access to the workforce in a way that we hadn't before. We can be CEOs, we can go to college, have terminal degrees, do whatever we want. We have access to bank accounts, which wasn't allowed without a man's signature until I think the 70s. We can own businesses, which wasn't allowed without a man's signature until the 80s. And we have these freedoms, but we don't have the social structure underneath of it. So if I get pregnant and have a child, which everybody wants us to have children, it's such a pro-life country, it's a pro-birth country. I've
Right.
got what, 6 weeks protected? 6 weeks? After having a kid? There's no structure underneath of it. There's no daycare that's provided at any sort of affordable rate and at a high level of care that we just don't there's no health care in this country unless you pay for it. And and I think that's what women are feeling is you can do anything, but you have no support. You have no
Mm.
support. And so this idea of being home and raising kids and being supported and not having to worry about that stuff is very enticing. And there's a lot of women who have made their work within their home, and that's wonderful. And we've seen the studies that come out that it's like those women, if they were paid for their labor, it's in the 6 figures for everything that they're doing. So again, that narrative, it's about how we market it and the narrative of it. But I do think, and I can only speak really to what I see and what my echo chamber is, but I do think it's this idea of like, I'm tired of struggling. I'm tired of being told I can do everything. And yet I take 2 steps forward and 5 steps back every time.
I agree.
Oh,
I
thank you.
think I think I think organizations need to step up and start leading the charge in this direction, right?
Yeah.
My organization where I work just announced that they're going to have a sabbatical program. So
Ooh,
if you've been at the company for 5 years, you can take a 5 week paid sabbatical to
that's
pursue
awesome.
something of you, whatever you want to do. And like, wow, how cool is that,
That's
right?
amazing.
And I think that I was like, I commented in the staff meeting, I was like, I worked a lot of places. I've been working for 20 years now. I'm out of college, and I've not seen anyone do anything like that,
No.
right? And I think that's a great way to lead, like if
Yes.
one person, if they do it, someone else will, oh, we want to do this too. More people do it. It's a benefit, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, I don't want to here because you don't have this benefit. And I think that's what needs to happen. And like, there's a lot of things happening. Like, there's this lot of restaurants, the high-end restaurants in DC are unionizing.
Yes.
Right? Like Le Diplomat, what's another one? The Star Restaurant Group or whatever. I
Hmm.
think a lot of their servers or their staff are unionizing, and that's because they people want something for nothing all the time. We always been saying for many years, Megan, we would talk and say like pay people what they're worth,
Yes.
you know, and that goes back to it. Like you want to pinch people, not pay people, and then in this crazy expensive life we have, what are you supposed to do?
Well, and I think it goes back to what we're talking about is not black versus white. It's not man versus
No.
woman. It's not left versus right. It's up versus down. It's the 1% of the 1%. And, people get upset about fair wages because ultimately
Right.
it trickles down to us, right? So,
Right.
those strawberries that are $5 in a little basket, if you actually paid farm workers a living wage, it's going to shoot up. But it's because the system is rigged. The system is rigged against
Yeah.
economic growth in a fair and meaningful way. And I love the idea of the sabbatical. And I actually kind of wanted to pivot to something we were talking about yesterday too, but I love sabbaticals that allow you to travel outside of the country and see how other cultures and countries are dealing with these issues, because these are all human issues, and we can learn to the diversity point. There's so much that we can learn from each other, and we get to decide what we want. Do we want to live in a society where people don't get paid fair wages, but I get to benefit from it? Or do we want to live in a society where we all get paid fair wages and we all can afford the strawberries and we all have health care and we all have XYZ? You know, someone was talking about their daughter's friend who applied to med school and was very high achieving, did everything right, and really struggled to get into med school. And I just brought up the point. I was like, why are we making it so? Don't we want doctors? Don't we want good doctors? Make the curriculum difficult, hold a high standard, but getting into med school really shouldn't be so prohibitive. Like, we need doctors. And it's just interesting when you start thinking about these things. It's like, yeah, why is it this way? So next time you get upset about unions organizing, just stop and think about, well, why? Why are they organizing? What's the underlying cause beneath of this? And take yourself out of it, because yeah, it is going to impact your checkbook. It is, but understanding from someone else's perspective and trying to see again the context around it. But something we were talking about yesterday that we stopped talking about because of this is creativity. And I just had a really interesting guest on yesterday. It'll air in a couple weeks, Mel Harvard, and she's a publisher and a ghostwriter. And she was talking about The Alchemist and how that book sat and sat and sat and sat until Oprah picked it up. And it maybe sat for 15 years. And then when Oprah picked it up and recommended it, it blew up. And her point was that was always a bestseller, regardless, prior to Oprah finding it and regardless to sales. And I think it we know that, but it's an interesting thing for me to think about because I do rely on other people's recommendations and I do value celebrities, recommendations or experts' recommendations. And I don't know, it just made me think about a lot of different aspects of creativity and art and our consumption of it.
Yeah, I feel like there's a democratization of all this happening all at once, right? So,
Mm,
this podcast is great. I love it.
mhm.
Maybe I'm biased.
Oh,
But there's a lot of podcasts in the marketplace right now, right?
yeah.
And I think the challenge is how do we get our goods, our creative goods to market, right? I think that's one of the challenges. We have like Paulo
Hmm.
Coelho.
Hmm.
That was his issue, right? And clearly Oprah found it, and now a big, huge bestseller. I think if that's anything, like how do we get recommendations, right? And I
Hmm.
think as I pursue my creative interests and produce different things, it's constantly a top of mind. Like, what do I do? How do I get this together? How do I, like, I feel like I'm a great networker. How do I get in these
Hmm.
rooms to network with people to like, oh, I'm a creative, I'm a budding writer, I'm an author, da 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 da. How can you read this? How can I have a meeting, things like that. So
Right.
I've thinking a lot about that.
And not letting financial success of the end product
Yeah.
influence the creation of the product, right? And I
Right,
think
exactly.
I think that democratization of especially social media, like I found so many artists through Instagram.
Yeah.
And I've bought their prints and I have started following them and it's opened me up to so many different artists and it's awesome. And same even with music, like
Right.
following one artist creates,
Full
and
stop.
many of these artists will never gain fame at the level of our girl Gaga or Beyonce or anything like
Right.
that, but it doesn't mean that their work isn't as important or as impactful. So how do you protect your art and the standard and the why and your values behind it while also wanting to get it out to a mass market? And you'll have to tell us when you successfully navigate that.
Yeah, Yeah, and this brings up another thing I wanted to talk about today.
Mhm.
What's your favorite thing? Speaking of creativity and production and these creative products that are put out there, what is your favorite Rihanna song or album? Do you have one? Maybe it's more
You,
of a song than an
you know what's
album.
so funny? I had like the 3 o'clock slump at work and I turned on Rihanna's halftime show. Oh my God, it jazzed me up. It was so good.
Yeah.
I
You
don't know
found
her
love.
album. Yeah, I don't know her albums that well, frankly, to say like an album. Rihanna to me is always such a vibe, but there's so many good songs, like so many good songs. Where have you been all my life?
Yeah.
Bitch, better have my money. She's good for a different vibe. Like, what vibe are you in?
I asked that question because if it's not on the anti album, she's ashamed of it. She came
Really?
out and wrote this article, or she was interviewed. She was like, only album I'm proud of is Anti. I'm working on new music, and it's gonna be a very different sound than what you know
Hmm.
of my music. And I thought, wow, what a strong statement to make when you know, I guess I'm such a gracious person, and so many people worked on these works, right?
Right, right,
And
right.
you have a huge fan base that loves, like, where have you
Hmm.
been all my life? Or, you
Yeah,
know, like you said, bitch, wherever I have money. I think that's on anti though.
that's one. Yeah,
Or like one of my favorites is You the One. You
yeah.
know, like I love that's my favorite album, that album there. And you're like, wow. You're like, if you're a fan, you're like, wow, I so should I not like it because you don't like it? Obviously, you have your own person, you can do whatever you want.
Right,
But I
right.
thought it was very interesting with all like the producers and musicians that everybody that's worked on these albums, like, like Umbrella with Jay-Z, you're ashamed of that song. Like, you know what
Well,
I mean? I just found it so interesting, such an interesting statement to put out there.
I agree with you. And I think I obviously will never speak for Rihanna, but it's interesting because I'm sure she wasn't trying to diminish all the work that went into it.
Yeah,
And all of the work prior to the anti-album got her to the anti-album, right?
that's so right.
And so I understand, as a writer, you can commiserate with this, so to speak. I look at some of my writing from years ago and I'm like, oh, it was so bad. But if it wasn't bad, I wouldn't be where I am now,
Right.
right? So I'm not embarrassed of it, but I am like, wow, look at where my headspace was, look at where my proficiency was, and it's certainly not who I am now as a writer, as an artist, as whatever you want to say. That's really interesting that she only likes anti. I wonder how many artists feel that way but don't say it publicly.
I was wondering about that about Beyonce. Like, I wonder if
Yep.
she feels, obviously Cowboy Carter, Renaissance, and Lemonade were very like
Lemonade.
very different from Can You Pay My Bills?
Right. And Lemonade was the turning point, I think, in her
It
art. Like
was
it
for
was a
sure.
huge shift.
With four, it was starting to bubble up. It was like, okay, four. So it had some bops, but then Lemonade was a complete departure. And then, her fans stuck with her, right? Like,
Can you believe we live in an era? I think about this a lot, where like we have Beyonce, we have Kendrick Lamar, we have Doechii, we have Megan Thee Stallion, we have all these like incredible artists that I'm leaving out. But like, can you believe we live in this time? I think about it a lot.
you know what it is? A lot of these greats are like 80, 81 babies, which is I find it very fascinating. Early 80s, they're millennial.
Hmm.
I mean, Doechii not so much, but like Beyonce is, and it is interesting. I'm happy to live in this music time.
I think it's incredible that we get to experience all of this art, like absolute art that's coming out.
But one thing I do want to do, and maybe this is other people listening feel the same way, like I listen to the same stuff all the time. I'm trying to bring out,
Same.
like, I mean, I love 90s alternative rock. I was listening to, what was I listening to the other day? I was listening to Girl Talk. And if you don't know who Girl Talk is a DJ who mashes up kind of like music from the 90s and early 2000s. And so he did this one song, he did like this Nirvana mashup with another one. And it was so great. And I was like, oh, this is great. I love it. But I'm trying to like branch onto the new stuff. Like at work,
Yeah.
we have a lot of interns, and I was like, I don't get Chappell Roan. Uh,
I love her.
I'm learning. I'm listening to more and more. And Sabrina Carpenter, all these new folks. Love Doechii, Sabrina Carpenter, Benson Boone. Like at the Grammys, he like did that flip. Oh,
Hmm.
please say, like I'm beautiful.
Yeah. You know,
And like,
it is hard to find new music
right. It's
sometimes,
an investment
especially
of time
yeah.
too. You're like, oh, I don't like this. Why did I? So I'm trying to branch out. Like Spotify is a new music Friday that I
Mhm.
try to like tap into to like find some new artists. I used to be like one of our mutual friends, Adam, big new artist person. Like he
Mhm.
always have all the know or and I was trying to like follow his lead and it got really exhausting because I'm like, oh, there's so much music to digest.
Is Adam still into new music?
Yeah.
Adam, if you're listening, come on, tell us about what you're listening
Oh,
to.
that'd be great.
He's not
He'd have a
listening.
lot to say.
Mm.
You know,
But
uh
in this environment with the news and how much is coming at us, how quickly things are coming at us and the volume of it, I have limited how often I check the news. I do it like twice a day and that's it.
of course. Oh yeah.
But even podcasts, I mean, we just yapped about it for a while. Even podcasts, which were kind of an escape for me, it's creeping up, and that's normal. It's part of the culture. It's we should be talking about these things, but it has forced me or encouraged me rather to go back to music, and I am listening to so much more music now, and it has been
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. It has been life-changing. Like
Oh,
it
for
really has
sure.
changed. It has cleared my brain. And to your point, a lot of it that was like, I can listen to Daft Punk on repeat all day sometimes and it just clears my head. You have
Last
your
night I
favorites.
had a dream about you. In this dream, I was dancing right beside you. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like so this is a good time to discover music, I think.
Yeah.
Like tune out some of the other stuff and find something that can really like help
And I love that
clear.
self-care. That's what is basically you're talking about
Yeah.
self-care through music. And I think we all need to do that, right? I'm the biggest news junkie.
Man,
Like
same.
previous years, I'd watch Meet the Press on a Sunday, like today.
Oh
I'd watch
yeah.
Press, I'd watch Face the Nation, I would watch This Week with George Stephanopoulos, like back like chain
Yeah,
smoke. I'm
back to
like,
back. Yeah.
yes, get me more senators. I want to hear. I can't. I'm like, oh my God. Especially when you know, like, it's the absurdity of and what people are like, some people are like on the right are saying, like, oh yeah, this makes sense. Oh yeah,
Well,
wrong way.
the
Yeah.
non-answering from anybody. It's like it
So
is wild to me.
so I'm protecting my piece
That's
and I'm
good.
like writing,
Yes.
right? I have a friend, one of my friend's husband is a guitar instructor, and so I'm starting to take lessons
I love
again
that.
with him. I just got approved to join the my count this gym around the corner from my house. Not It's not like a corporate gym, it's like a local, and there are a few spots, and so now there's open one, and so I
That's
can
great.
do strength training. I'm excited to get involved. I'm excited to do these things for myself because
Yes.
I know so much of like even watching, even streaming shows, it's like, I've sort of learned that it's all a time suck where I could be putting pouring all that energy, all that
Mhm.
time into myself as opposed to like giving it away to Bravo or Paramount, although I am watching 1923.
Oh,
But
I can't wait to hear your thoughts. The thing about that is it's interesting because I feel the same way. I think you are experienced at a heightened level in DC. I mean, the fact that 200,000 federal workers have been fired in that region is devastating. I mean, I don't think people understand how devastating it is and how it's going to be for the DC region. But that aside, I was talking to my therapist about productivity recently, and she was like, "Are you okay when you're not productive?" And I won't get into to everything we were talking about, but I said, yes, I am. Like there are times when I want to sit and I just want to watch 1923, or right now I'm watching Palm Royale, and that's been a real joy. But what I've learned to do is instead of using it to distract, I consciously choose it. And I agree with you. Like, I want to eat up life and I want to do this podcast. I want to go to the gym. I want to get my yoga certification. I want to run. I want to do all these things. And if it's nourishing me, that yes, it's productive, but it's also a choice that I'm making. And our self-worth isn't based on that productivity. It's about, it actually gets back to what we were saying about like, creating art without the idea of financial gain later on.
right.
That's great that when you go to the gym, do you wear your glasses?
Depending what I'm doing.
Can you see without your glasses?
Yes.
And you see me, what am I doing?
You're leaning in.
I
Lean
can't
in, Megan.
I can't see anything without my contacts or glasses.
I have astigmatism. It's getting worse, but as I get older, but that's
What's
normal.
astigmatism?
When your eye is shaped like a football, and so it
Oh,
distorts your vision.
gotcha.
More oblong than sphere.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah,
An oblong baby.
that's astigmatism.
Nice. Good
And
for
that's my
you.
family. It's my brother and my sister, I think, are both have astigmatism.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
You know
yeah,
what?
huh?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, and I was going back to your piece about creative piece, and I love writing. Like I was like about to, I talk to you all the time about, how what I love about writing and what I don't like about writing, But what I love more about it is just I'm telling these stories. Like I love storytelling, right? I think that's the crux of why I'm writing or why I did tours for so long, or give tours of different places, is because I just love that story, that education, that storytelling to people about that are just sometimes they're just not in the know about certain things.
And I've noticed it just in our conversations over the last year, how your writing has changed you. Like you are, I don't want to say so much more focused. You seem like so much more yourself when we talk. Like you're not distracted by like, oh, what do you think if I buy this house or whatever? Like you're so just, I don't know. It's been really cool to see, but I think it's that nourishment of your creativity and following the dreams that you want to follow. It's been really cool to watch. The dumb thing I was about to say when I interrupted you is, you know what's something I realize I do when I watch TV? Like if a character goes underwater, I hold my breath and see if hold it as long as they do.
Really?
Yeah, I was thinking about 1923. There's a part where like the really hot guy who's in Africa, the
Oh, I
oh,
can't. He
woo,
is
woo,
gorgeous.
woo, oh. Anyway, there's a scene where he jumps under the water and is swimming all around and he's down there for a while. And I do that. I'm like, could I hold my breath as
That
long as they do?
actor, who is that?
Who is that?
I haven't because it's
Woo,
1923's been on a break for so long.
I know.
I think at least 2 years. I think.
It's
Like
new
I
to me,
haven't
but
watched.
it's coming back out.
I know it's like in a few weeks it's coming back, but who is that actor? I think is it someone that we know, or is he
He's in,
Brandon Sklenar is his name?
what's
He
his
plays
deal?
Spencer Dutton. I don't
What's
know.
his deal?
He doesn't look as cool
No,
outside of the
not on his IMDb. Well, that's not who I was thinking of.
That's him.
I know.
They really did something with him in the show,
Okay,
man.
yeah, that's much better. That's much better.
Oh yeah, it's giving.
That's my
That
Brandon.
Travis Kelsey coming in with that
Ooh,
handlebar mustache. Is that coming
oh
back?
Lord.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
This is like when Ryan Gosling was like young. Same thing,
Uh,
same vibe.
it's amazing how much styling can really change your entire look. Not
Yeah.
only from your, especially more men and women, I guess, but more men because men don't put in effort in general, right?
Yeah.
As a whole, at
Or
large.
they don't have as many options either.
That's changing.
Yeah,
I
I
think
agree.
a lot more men are buying women's clothes because not because it's a gay thing or a queer thing.
No,
It's
more
because there's
options.
more options. And if you can fit a women's sizing, go look at that interesting jacket or that interesting top. Look at Kendrick Lamar, the Celine jean. I think they're unisex or
Yeah,
male jeans. But they're hot topic. Who knew the flared jean would be something people would keep talking about out of
love
the
it.
Super Bowl? Kendrick Lamar, right? And I think that's something the fashion industry is changing a little bit. And that's why I appreciate brands that do offer unisex or they do a men's line that's very interesting. Like, I had strong feelings about Zac Posen on Project Runway. You know,
Hmm.
I didn't feel like he was a good replacement for our favorite. Um
Michael,
Michael Kors.
what a wackadoodle.
I know.
I just actually saved a TikTok that I was going to send you about Michael Kors just giving one-liners. Like,
Michael Kors is
God,
brilliant.
he's
But
so
Zach
good.
Posen really couldn't really do that. But Zach Posen is doing a good job at Gap Inc.
Amazing.
Go ahead, Zach. Zach, you get your I applaud you. I've been returned to the Gap
It's a new era for the
and
Gap.
I've
He
bought
has
several items from the Gap because they're great.
They're
Signed
fantastic.
exclusives, great style. I get lots of compliments on my kimono jacket that I've worn
Yeah.
as well. So hat. I tipped my hat to Zac Posen at the Gap.
Yeah, that if you haven't checked out the Gap recently, it feels like 90s peak Gap. I mean, it really is feeling great and it's affordable.
Way of they have all these insane sales all the time. I think
Yeah.
it's like Macy's with a red dot. Remember Macy's? Like, oh,
Macy's always has a sale. They're like, it's Tuesday at noon sale.
I
Like,
know.
I haven't been buying anything. Like I've really not been buying anything, and I've noticed it on my bank account. I'm like, wow.
I told you retail is my boyfriend, which I need to
I
like
know. You got to
break
write
up.
that down. It's so good.
But I think one of the brands that obviously huge Beyonce fan, but the Ivy Park line with Adidas was amazing. There were so many amazing pieces you could find in consignment. The biggest consignment store
Hmm.
being eBay. Like you can get these pieces that came out a year or two ago. A lot of them brand new, and like I got that coat that everyone liked on my Instagram. You reposted it on your story.
Oh, that was Ivy Park?
That was Ivy Park.
Wow. Love it.
So, and I feel like it didn't, I wasn't making money, obviously, or for some reason. I think retail, the prices were a little
I think they
high.
were a little high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and they were constantly releasing lines or
Hmm.
campaigns. But what about some interesting stuff, right? And I feel like that's what moving the needle for again, back to diversity. You have these folks moving the needle forward, right? I hate to invoke his name, but
So,
Kanye.
oh
Kanye
no.
line. I
Oh
know.
God.
I hate to say
Go
his
ahead.
name.
Say it
I'm
though.
not giving him any
Say it. Say
props,
it.
but his fashion line, which often wasn't for me all the time, but moved the needle forward in terms of people doing interesting things.
You
I'll just
think
say
so?
that. So I mean, he's always been an influential person to this day. And it's unfortunate because talk about a wackadoodle
Well, he's a
now.
Nazi. I mean, it's
I
like, let's
know.
just call it what it is. But
It's
it's
insane.
interesting that you say that because Kanye was taken so seriously in the fashion industry. I mean, he had Anna Wintour right by his side, and he was putting out, again, not what I found interesting. I don't really know if it was high fashion or not, but the
Yeah,
high fashion industry certainly embraced him. And I think he legitimized the Kardashians in a way that they never would have had before. And we don't have to get into his control and all the messed up stuff
right.
that he did with that, but it is interesting. He's difficult to talk about because he is who he is and
I'll be
is now
like,
putting out
like a
swastikas on
like the
t-shirts.
graduate level course at a university talking about that. Like it's
Yes, but
great.
so interesting. But like that version of Kanye, where I don't know how things work. I don't know if he still felt the way he does now then, but that version of Kanye must have been interesting for him as an artist to expand out. I mean, I think and not limiting himself to just music and incorporating fashion into music. Unfortunately, he just went off the rails. I mean, totally off
Right.
the rails. I think it's I don't listen to his music anymore because of that, and
Yeah.
it's
Same.
un I, I like his music. I mean, it sucks, but I'm really surprised at how people haven't stopped listening to Kanye.
Or buying and stuff.
Hmm.
We can talk about something else now. I just brought that up, just the impact and moving.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's and I don't yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. But like Beyonce with Ivy Park didn't have the same. I can't think of another
But
artist who has had the
Adidas
same.
thought that that would have happened, but I think that's interesting because it just shows what the impact and influence. Is it the design that's great, or is it him? You know what I mean? And it's always a question to ask. But I guess it's
Yeah.
interesting,
And it's also the marketing around it.
right? Yeah. So Ivy Park still exists, even though it's not with
Yes.
Adidas any longer. It's not a collaboration. So I'm excited for Beyonce to maybe after Cowboy Carter or after Act Three. Who knows?
Do you think
Yeah.
Act Three is gonna be like rock and
Wow.
roll? Yeah.
I don't know. I thought at one point, sure, but she keeps us on our toes, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I
I'd
don't
love a
know.
Beyonce rock album.
Yeah, that would be cool. Or someone said a rap album. That would be cool too.
Whatever she does, I'm in. Like it'll be
Right.
interesting.
I'm in as well. I'm just curious. Like, I'm curious what's gonna be next.
Me too. I hate to do this, but I have like 5 minutes because I'm going to yin yoga. It's so
I'll go
good.
for it. Anything else
Um,
to talk about?
I was gonna say, what do you want to talk about in the last 5 minutes?
Bob, I think was the Rihanna piece. I wanted to bring that up. Black
That's
History
so
Month.
interesting.
Yeah, that.
Oh, you know what I had on my list that we're not going to be able to get through? Maybe we will. So I'm on this Facebook group, and it's really just because I find it interesting of like, sis, is this your man, or are we dating the same person, or something
Oh
like that?
yeah, I've heard about this group.
And the thing that's interesting about it, like, first of all, cheers to the ladies who came up with this, but there's always some post on there from some guy who looked like he just got released from Sing Sing. And like they're like, who else is talking to this man? And like,
No one.
or it's like, oh, my cousin is da 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 da. And I'm just like, why is it these men who look like they're on America's Most Wanted who get the most attention? It's
That's a you
wild to me.
question.
It's
Why are
wild to
women
me.
like why are women like that?
I think it's a self-esteem thing, but it's always so funny to me. Or it's like, I just started dating this sweetie, and you're like, "Whoa," and they're like, any tea? I'm like, run, look at this guy, run. Like, what are you doing? What are you
I was
doing?
having a conversation and we talked about this with one of my other with my friends about red flags. And when you see the red flags, like run. Like don't try to rationalize a red flag.
Don't
Like,
try and make it fit.
but no, just like no, this is not
I
gonna work.
used to fall in love with potential. I used to fall in love with the person I saw that they could be. And what I realized is that was just the version of myself of
Now
who
that
that
we're over
person would
40,
be.
you are the person. You
Correct.
are right. There's no potential anymore.
No, no. And I'm not talking about like how we often see potential, like an idealized version. Like,
Yeah.
don't make excuses for someone because you idealize them in your head. And I think the person that you're talking about, that person has a really bright career ahead, like a national presence type of career ahead. And right now, the number one thing that will deter that and derail that is a partner who's not bought in. And like, look at Doug. My boy Dougie with Kamala. I mean,
Love
Doug,
Doug Imhoff.
I always joke Doug was just happy to be there, but he was. I mean, he was. He's all in on her career. And you
Yeah.
saw it last night at, was it the NAACP Awards? She just received an
Yeah.
award. And
Yeah.
he's so happy to be there. Like, and so
Y'all
proud
need
of her.
supportive partners. If your partner's not supporting you like Doug, it ain't
I
worth
don't
it.
want it.
I don't want it. I don't want it. You
And
better clap for me. You better be
yes,
there for me. I'm going. Oh, you want to come to these? I'm getting an award. You want to come? No, I'd rather just stay home and watch the game.
no,
No,
we're not doing that.
get your
And
ass
it,
up and you're going down to wherever we're going.
we kind of said this on Valentine's Day. Like, it is hard when you don't have someone. And I love love. I love Valentine's Day, whatever. I love all that stuff. But and I'm not diminishing, like, having a partnership is wonderful. And when you don't have it, like, it kind of sucks sometimes. But I did see that creator Cyrus on TikTok made a video that was like, no jokes, no games. If you're upset around Valentine's Day, would you lower your standards just to have someone? And I saved it. I was like, oh my God, like, I need to listen to this on repeat sometimes because you do idealize. And I was like, yeah, no, never. I buy myself flowers every week. Like,
Yeah,
and it doesn't mean that I don't get sad. It doesn't mean that I don't want a partner. And there's times where I'm like, oh, I wish I could just come home and snuggle on the couch or things like that. But it has to be the right person. And also, right now in my life, like, I have so many goals. Like, to your point of like, you're working out and you're doing creative writing and you're doing all these different things. I don't know how much time I could give to a relationship right now outside of the relationship I have with myself. And I think that's something that's been a long time for me to understand.
yeah.
But yeah, that friend of yours, don't settle. You're a gem. I know who it is. You're a gem. Don't settle. Don't excuse the red flag.
Leave these men alone. You get bad by
And I'm sure
yourself.
women too. I just don't have examples of
Yeah.
that in my life. But
Leave them alone.
it's
Leave these people alone that are exhibiting red flags.
and explore why you're pursuing it,
Look for the green
right?
flags. Let's change from negative to positive.
Yeah,
Look for those green flags and get close to the green flag people
I
like me.
know. Like you. You're a catch. You are.
Oh,
If
please.
anybody's listening or watching this, Matt is single.
Ah.
He is a catch, but he's very busy. Look at him. Look how cute he is. Okay, I'm gonna go to yoga.
All right.
This was a serious yap.
I know it wasn't as fun.
No, I think it was still good.
Fun. It wasn't as like zany.
No,
Like
no,
singing as
zany.
much.
We'll be zany next time.
I know. Well, the
But
world
this
is
was
like,
very Sunday conversation.
I know. Sunday morning kitchen table talk.
Kitchen table talk. All right, I'll talk to you later.
All right. Have fun at yoga.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Wait, What Do You Do Again? For more information about today's guest, or if you'd like to be on the show, please visit megdeford.com. See you next time.